What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Save Point Podcast, episode 31. I am one of your hosts, Alex. I'm joined, as always, by Sway. And here we are again, another pre-recorded video. This is the era where when you're watching this, Sway and I are occupied. But hopefully you enjoyed the Assassin's Creed video last week. This video, we got one more pre-recorded, and then we're back to the live content. So we're doing this way ahead of time. We did a live stream last week in real time, Sway. And we got into a whole thing about just fictional characters, our bread and butter, movies, games, television, and just who we like. And I think it's next to impossible to actually rank them. I mean, that's what we said in the live stream because too many fights, you're going to want to switch, characters. It's maybe how you feel on a certain day. I'm also not really willing to say who's my third favorite character of all time. Very hard thing to do. But we are here to just kind of go off on like a side rant and just go through some of them, some characters that we can first think of that we super like, whether it be games, movies, television. So Sway, do you have any in mind? Do you have any you want to start us off with?
Obviously, Dick Grayson, Peter Parker, Master Chief, John 117, as we know.
Now,
Dante,
what are your
Nero.
favorite versions of each of them? Like where are they at their best?
Okay, so Nightwing is a little different because I would say there is a specific artistical style that I like him in.
Yeah.
But as far as like character development and story, there's a few comics I like that in better. But my favorite version of how Nightwing is presented is actually the Batman animated series when he had the mullet. That is my favorite probably version of Nightwing from an artistic standpoint. And there's a few comics that I've liked him in that I think represents him the best. And I also love him in Young Justice. And then Spider-Man portrayal and like artistical style would have to be the 1994 Spider-Man animated series.
Yeah.
So that was I mean I will literally go on all day in this podcast. What about you, man?
To double down on Spider-Man. Spider-Man is kind of, I feel like any era you grew up in or any genre that you go into, you could find. I really like Andrew Garfield's. I like his.
Same.
Yeah. And I see a lot of clips of those movies. I rewatched them before No Way Home, and I liked them. And then I still see like clips of just kind of the cinematography and just like the CG, the actual like effects, and it really just further makes my point. Sorry to put this on a tangent, but it is what we do here. Modern movies, I don't know what's wrong with the talent level, but they are just nowhere near as good. Like the fact that what was the second one, 2014, like that movie looks better than most movies now. And I will always go back to like Davy Jones. You tell me that Pirates 2 and 3, I'll tell you a fact. Pirates 2 and 3 look better than most movies released in the last 5 years.
Agreed.
And those movies are 2006 and 7. So 16 years old. And they're better looking than the cinema, like the CG, the graphics, the Kraken, Davy Jones, the everything. So it's actually scary how much worse it is now. I was even watching like the Fast and Furious movies, and I actually think some of the newer ones do look, because they're trying to always like one up each other, right? But like Hobbs and Shaw was the last one I watched. There's some explosions and some scenes where it like looks out of a game, but it looks like misplaced. And that movie was like 2019. I actually think like Fast 5 or 6 were better looking than movies like 3, 4, 5 years later. I don't understand. I don't understand.
I think it's the use of I realized this when the Batman came out. Practical effects is something that people should use a lot more.
Yeah.
I know the reasons why they don't want to, but when you over rely on CG, I think that is a large part of the problem of what we're seeing. And then I agree with the Spider-Man take. In fact, I'd go one step further. One thing that I pointed out when Spider-Man 2018 came out, a lot of his web swinging animations and everything like that is from Amazing Spider-Man. Like most of his parkour and like it's from Amazing Spider-Man. Like they took the swinging, but like flowing in between like a construction post
Yeah. Yeah.
from the Toby era, but 90% of Spider-Man's parkour and web swinging is from Amazing Spider-Man.
Does it feel weird to you that when we're recording this, we're not there yet, we're a week out, but when this video goes up, it's months later, Spider-Man 2 shown, and it's coming out in just a few months. Like, is that weird?
That is gonna be weird. Oh man,
So yeah,
I
I mean, just so everybody knows, I mean, we're doing this whole thing on Spider-Man. I'll tell like present time, end of May 18th. Now you know which day we recorded it. I gotta go back. I gotta play Spider-Man 2018. I haven't played it in a few 2020, I think is when I played it. So it's been 3 years. I gotta go back because I'll watch videos of just the web swinging, and it's like it was just so. I was like, well, I guess Miles, like you play Miles after, and it's relatively the same. It's just so good to traverse in that game. Okay, not to get us too off beat, but holy God, if you want a game that just, I mean, Insomniac, I think, are masters at that.
they are
Just kind of all the way, with Sunset Overdrive.
traversal.
Yeah, like any game
They
that
are
they
masters
do.
at it.
Okay, fictional characters. So I said Jack Sparrow comes. I mean, I'd like to
Yes.
throw Davy Jones in. So like those two is like a power, maybe even Barbosa. I mean, we can go down the Pirates thing. I'll cap it at those three. I think those three are. Barbosa's very like under the radar. Obviously, everybody knows who Jack Sparrow is, and Davy Jones, I think, it had become something. So I think people know. I just think they're incredible. I could watch those movies over and over and over and just watch them, and you get something. That's how I feel very powerful about a character. I was thinking of Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul because I wanted to, I was thinking, all right, well, I'm gonna go for like, I love Harry Potter and Star Wars. You could say Luke and Darth Vader are two really good ones. General Grievous is my favorite Star Wars character of all time, so I guess I'd have to put him very high up there. But if I wanted somebody like, I don't think any of them are super cliche or they're obviously like biasness because I grow up on them and they're so big, but maybe they lack some of the more like the finer details of like some of these smaller indie kind of things. Not that Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are indie. I do think Saul Goodman is one of the better written characters like of all time. Maybe Walter White, but I actually think Saul is more kind of well rounded. He was around much longer in the long run than Walt. So if you want one that's really like out there, I'd say him. I'm staying away from games because I want to do games at the end. You mentioned Master Chief though. So number one, what's your favorite version of him in a game? And then and of course you can't forget the legendary TV show. And then number two, is there any other characters in games?
Master Cheeks definitely will not be in my top. But
Why?
definitely probably the Halo 2 version of Master Chief. I took to that one a lot, and it was the game that probably endeared me the most to Master Chief.
I liked 4,
Um,
although I mean 4 was so divisive. I think it still is. He talks so much more, but
you get so much more out of him.
his connection to Cortana. I mean, even in 5 or what is that? What Halo Infinite?
I loved him in 5.
Yeah,
Yeah, Halo Infinite.
yeah.
Yep.
I again, I liked some of the back and forth that he has. I don't think it's ruined. I think he's been around too long. Like I think he's kind of in this weird like where they want him obviously because he is Halo. But I don't mind what they've done. I mean, there are a lot of people that have a lot of issues with his more talkative stance, but I think they've done it pretty darn well. I don't know if it's
a
the best.
progression
I think
storytelling.
the originals are still the better ones, but I don't think they've ruined it.
I think what a lot of people, I wish a lot of people would kind of come around to is that we always talk about how we want great storytelling, we want great writing, and great progression. Him not being as talkative versus him being able to speak more and feel comfortable to speak more, that is progression. And that's going to happen over time. And it's one of those things where, even with franchises, it's like the story has to progress, especially if you want it to continue. You, under those circumstances, you should want them to progress. Everything can't be South Park where everybody stays the same age, same grade school, no matter how many years has passed. It's the same time period. They don't age.
Yeah.
It's genuinely not how it works. So I am all for.
What about Ash from Pokemon?
I love Ash. He's
Okay.
he's my favorite era of Pokemon. Like there was a while where I could not consume anything Pokemon unless Ash and Pikachu was in it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I was thinking
um
that made me think of like Dark Magician and stuff, and like so Yu-Gi-Oh, it's more of like the cards. I don't know. I
yes.
mean, they are fictional characters. Like how cool Dark Magician, or even like Dark Magician Girl or Blue Eyes, like all of them are just some of the coolest looking things you'll ever see in your goddamn life. Um,
Exodia and
oh
the
yeah,
Egyptian god cards always were two things where like the Exodia cards were so hard to find, and my mom was so tired of buying cards for me when I was younger because I'm trying to get like pieces to this card,
yeah,
like, and I never could get it. Years later I did, but it was getting them off of like eBay.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like yeah, they were
What an
extremely
era.
hard to find. It was, and I still have my deck. I still have my dual disc. I Yu-Gi-Oh was very much a part of my childhood.
What other games? What other characters come to mind?
Anakin Skywalker is my favorite Star Wars character.
Okay.
Um, very very complex character. Um, I mentioned South Park. Cartman is one of my favorite characters of all time.
Yeah.
Like in any, especially like television media, but and probably media in general, he would definitely have to be up there for me. Too hilarious. So many. Nathan Drake.
I
Love
I
Nathan
was gonna
Drake.
say Nate. That was gonna be one of mine for sure. Nate, I don't, it would probably be an okay amount of PlayStation characters. That's when I kind of jumped
Oh
into
yeah.
the game. Was on PS3, really. I guess if you go back, like Crash and Spyro, but they were also linked to PlayStation, especially when that was happening. Sly Cooper, a lot of them probably would be. But Nate, I think, would have to be at the top. Oh, but I mentioned Sly last week when we did the live stream. I and I've been thinking a lot about Sly Cooper specifically because the plays. And by God, if Sly's announced at this thing, and we're talking about it months later, so just know my mindset right now is that it's not going to be shown. So I'm not like expecting it. But Sly, I think he's a really
If
good
it's
character.
shown, there has to be a celebration stream here.
Yeah, no, I would definitely. I don't even know what would happen to me if Sly is announced at that PlayStation Showcase. I definitely replay the games, but no, I think Sly and really that whole cast, like I always believe those games are very well written and they have emotion and they have like character arcs with these people. There's one character arc specifically that I despise, and that's in Thieves in Time. But besides that, I think they do a really good job. So yeah, I think Sly and Nate would be more PlayStation centric, I suppose. I'd also throw in, I mentioned Max from Life is Strange. I think, the more I think, and I don't want to divide them like male versus female because I think Max is just such a good character. I would think of Kingdom Hearts characters. I think you gotta
Yes.
go to Kingdom Hearts eventually for
Sora.
Aqua and Sora and people like that. Riku, very complex and deep. So I mean, and we talked about this, like what's so special, I guess, about gaming, but just like all across. I mean, there was just so many really good characters. I mentioned Jack. I didn't mention like one of my other favorite of Scream. I think like a Sidney Prescott is actually an incredibly, really good character. Final girl, but also just a good character. So I mean, that's why I love. I mean, it's an escapist thing, but like
Yep.
you get some incredible stories. Now I think you get the best stories in games. Um, and they're just the preferred. I think they're just the better overall. What do you think? Do you think gaming, or what's your preferred medium? Has it ever
Um,
changed? Has it ever changed?
it's a little different for me.
Oh my. You're not going to say games?
Quick. Well, no, it's not that I'm not gonna say games, but growing up, I was actually taken classes for acting and editing,
Oh
and
yeah,
I
yeah.
had visual media classes. So for me, there was a while where, and kind of still to this day, where like I looked into more of like what goes into movie, what goes into storytelling, and things of that nature. And it's kind of different. Like the mediums of storytelling that I've enjoyed the most have come from games, without a doubt. And so I would definitely say games, but um, I get what movies are going for, but that's also like when a studio decides to do something for an IP that I love, I would either prefer it to be in a show format
Yeah.
or a gaming format.
But what do
Because
you
even
think?
though a
What
movie
what
would,
makes movies special? What is it?
honestly, for me, it's the budget, the quality that is put into it. But that's also kind of, being a movie for a lot of things kind of hinders it unless it's like a specific movie over a specific arc. And that's kind of the difference for me as far as what, like the difference for me as far as like saying doing a Superman movie in a trilogy, that's perfectly fine. But doing a show, you can take your time and get so much out of it. But the caveat to a show is you don't completely have the budget that you would have to make everything look good and crisp as it should as in the movie. So there's drawbacks, but like for example, one of my favorite movies of all time is The Warriors, and that is a movie that I think would be tailor made to be done in a show because of all of the different gangs and all of the different aspects to it. And John Wick, actually, the last John Wick actually took, I say the whole series takes a lot of pays a lot of homage to the Warriors. And so I think that even John Wick would be, imagine a John Wick show with the same production quality. It would be great. They can flesh everything out. It doesn't have to be rushed. And that's kind of why, but even in video games, you get to play that. You
Yeah.
get to go through that. You have to, and that's why I said like video games or a show format would always be the preferential. Video games is the happy medium where you do have that budget there, and you do have multiple games that can spin off into a franchise. So video games would definitely be number one, with shows being number two. It's just you don't know what type of budget and quality you're getting with shows.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. You know, like I think I'm into characters and storytelling, right? So
Same.
and so movies really, I mean, for the longest time that's the only, like, shows as well, but movies and shows. Games, back in the good old days in the 80s 90s, I mean, I was playing the first Castlevania game, right? And there is story, but so it took a long time, like a very long time. And if you go through like my favorite games of all time, they're gonna probably be very story heavy. So
Mm-hmm.
gaming really, to me, to give movies more credit. I think Hollywood, I think, is atrocious and a disaster now. But I mean,
Yep.
well, historically, obviously they've done a lot of great things. But the essence of what it does, it tells a story, and it tells
Mm-hmm.
it in a very condensed way. Like, you got to get in, you got to do your thing, you got to get out. You don't have time. I mean, some movies, I guess, can, and when you have trilogies and stuff. But so when you can combine that with, like you said, then you can play it. And I think that's probably why, like a game like Heavy Rain, or if you think of
Yes.
Uncharted and stuff, it's not just watching this high action and laughing along as Nate makes a joke, because you can do that in a movie, but you're playing as Nate. You are in the action. You're causing the action, right? That's that extra step that movies can literally never do, ever. So gaming does have that unfair advantage, and for the longest time, movies, because they're humans, like you can see a person doing it, whereas games, that's, I mean, go back to early to, I mean, you can go back really any era, even go back like 2010. They don't look incredible. They don't look like you or me. But we're getting there. Like, we're getting more. So, like, when The Last was Part 2, although very divisive, it's close. Like, it's close to those people looking like they're really
Very
doing that,
real.
you know? And there's something maybe a little scary about that, but also, like, very, very, cool with technology. So, that's probably, I mean, gaming wise. But I would say this, though. Gaming, I think, so in that way, they're somewhat close, but because of you can play them, I think gaming gets that benefit. But then gaming also has that extra benefit of having the different genres. So it's not, now movies, like, horror, comedy, all that stuff, there are genres of that. But I'm saying for gaming, it's not just you're watching people do stuff and you're playing it, but also now there's multiplayer. Now there's
Yeah.
racing. Now there's just fighting, Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Street Fighter. So like you don't even have to play games for the reasons that I just, I'm into the stories. You can play Rocket League. When are you going to get to do that in your show or movie? Right? Like that is just so, and then the connectivity with other people playing with others.
Yeah.
It once you bring in like
It's
any
unmatched.
other genre of video games, it immediately like tilts the scale to me like way too much,
Exactly.
you know.
I think that's 100% true. And like I said, like my favorite type of game is probably a single player game. I love to partake in multiplayer games. Um, but just like you, a story really grasps me. And a character that, although wouldn't be in my top five, I believe that I don't even think it was on purpose.
Can I
But
guess? Can I
I
guess this character?
go for it.
Okay, can I have a hint? Because all I got was maybe they're in the top five, maybe they're not. Give me a hint. Let me try to guess this.
I would say starting off, they were a very aggressive character.
Kratos.
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
I would say that he is underratedly
He's great. I love him.
franchise consistency has had amazing character development. And one thing that when I hear it, I kind of like want to scratch a chalkboard or something, or it's like scratching. Listen to
Yeah,
a chalkboard getting scratched. Is saying that in the first three games, in
he
the
just
first like
yells. He
bulk of his
just
games,
screams.
he was just angry and things
Yeah,
like that. And I'm like,
it's
you
not
didn't pay
true.
attention to the story.
Yeah,
It's not true. And even how he interacts with certain characters versus the ones that do make him angry, he's not constantly angry throughout those games. He does have a moral code and a moral guideline, and it isn't just he sees red all the time. He only sees red for those who wronged him or those who are wronging others.
yeah,
And he's that pain that you see in the last two God of War games has always been there. That maturity has always been there. It's just after he did what he did, he was able to kind of let that go finally. That whole first three games was character development and very subtle character development if you did not really want to look into anything more than the gameplay or more than his rage. He literally his skin, the story of his skin is a story in itself
yeah,
because those are the ashes of his children and wife.
yeah.
So it is just Kratos is a very, and it's crazy to say that he's underrated because a lot of people give him so many props with the last two games,
But
but the
was
first
he
three
was
games is
hated
what
for a
set that.
long time. So
Yes,
I think you could say underrated because yeah, people will now say, 2018 and God of War Ragnarok how amazing, and they
they
are.
fixed him, or they are,
Yeah,
and I'm like they didn't. He was never broken. You
yeah,
just didn't
yeah.
see it, or you didn't pay attention.
That was, I mean, if you look at the reviews, I've done like look at the reviews and the talk around God of War 3, and I mean Kratos's attitude is one of always the things that people will go after, and critics in terms of score and stuff. So yeah, for the longest time, I mean it's quite the redemption story in that generic kind of view, right? Because of he really was not looked like you would never put him in the same category as a Nathan Drake or any of these characters,
Exactly.
and then all of a sudden then he became maybe better than all these characters, and I think he is better than what he was for sure. But like
Mm-hmm.
I've played 3 more than any other God of War game, and I love him in 3. I don't want to say he's always angry. He definitely always has like that kind of mean streak in his voice. When he's talking to like Pandora or like certain characters, yeah, like he chills out. Like he's always very to the point. But he's like that in the newer games too. Like he doesn't take any BS. Like he's very by the books. But he will calm down a little bit, and he does care about certain things. Yeah, and so I always thought that in 3, even when I first played it, I was like, he doesn't just yell. And you play all of them, and it specifically, and people will say, like I would go hard for that. He's not that one dimensional in 3. You could make a very good argument for 1. He's not very one dimensional in 1 either. Like I don't know, I don't know how people see it, but
I don't either. In those games where like you just said, like he does chill out. The only difference is I would even say with the newer games versus the older ones is that those portions where he talked to people who he didn't hate,
Yeah.
and he was mellowed out, he's like that for an entire game.
Yeah.
That is the. It's not like it wasn't
He
there.
didn't even want to fight Hercules, if I think about it. He didn't want to fight him. He
Exactly.
punched him. He went after him first, you know? He
And so
every other
he,
god he wanted to kill, sure. But Hercules, he was trying to talk him down in the beginning of that arena fight. So yeah. Yeah. Just want to throw that one out there.
yeah, and he's not. Kratos is. He's. I can go on about this all day, but Kratos is extremely. I don't think the older Kratos gets the respect that he does, and I think that the way people overly talk about the newer one kind of disrespects the work, the groundwork to what we see,
Yeah.
because what we see today would not mean nearly as much, just to me personally. That progression would not mean nearly as much if the first two God of Wars ever made was these two games,
Yeah.
the last two games. It wouldn't have the same effect on me versus knowing what he came from, what he was up against, what he had to go through, all of that.
Yeah.
Like, because he has the kid that's alive, and he gets to literally raise it without, like it going away or somebody killing him, and it that alone, like
Yeah.
he's been through enough trauma, but that trauma isn't there if the last two games were the only two games that existed.
I want to throw out because we haven't talked about the open world genre as much, and there's a couple that jump out in terms of Geralt and then Red Dead.
Mm-hmm.
So like Arthur and characters like that. So do you because I think when you think of like people's favorite games of all time, Witcher 3 is one that so that's where Geralt, Red Dead 2, or even like a John Marston. Like I think these are fantastic characters, also just in a different genre. Do you have a favorite amongst those three? Is there other I'm trying to think of like other open world games just in general.
I'm trying to think of it. It's crazy because we've all played so many open world games,
Yeah.
but I am really trying to.
I think a Mass Effect with Commander Shepard, but that's not really open world. But there's a character that you kind of make your own, so that's a little bit different too.
I mean, they're not traditionally open world, but we can't go wrong with Link. um, that's an option now.
Yeah.
Man, like
What's the
open world
strongest
games.
Nintendo character? Not strong by like muscle. Like what's the best character?
I mean, I'm always gonna say the best Nintendo character. This is, it's not my favorite game of all time, but I do believe that it has a case for the greatest game of all time, which is Mario.
Yeah.
I do believe that is their strongest character.
The tough thing about Mario is iconic, been around forever.
He doesn't really have that much of a character.
Yeah, is he that deep? Is like why?
Oh, okay, you're saying strongest as in deep.
Well, I guess yeah. I mean,
Or
if you
like
mean most
character
popular,
development.
it's got to be Mario, right? Has to be
Yeah.
Mario. But like Mario, why do people like Mario? His powers?
He's fun.
He's fun. Yeah. I think
would have
like
to
the
say he's
level
fun.
ups and just I think it comes more from the game. Here's a question. If you made Mario back in the day, right? Go back into the 80s. You make those games. Would those games work with anybody? You come up with another person's name, another design for character, you put it in the exact same games. Does that become the legend that is Mario? I think it does. I don't think Mario himself did it. Does that make sense?
No, it was definitely the gameplay and the simplicity of it. Like easy to play. I think it was actually one of those things where it's like easy to play and hard to master, kind of.
Yeah.
You could play it, and the first couple of things is easy. It's easy to get a hold of, but some of those boards became harder to beat as you progressed and got to new levels and new levels and new levels.
Yeah.
So I think that it was the gameplay loop that really made him iconic.
Yeah. I'm not trying to put down Mario, but because I think he's easily the most recognized. He's probably the most recognizable. Is he the most recognizable thing of all? I mean, like the movie, I think puts him up there with like a Mickey. I think Mickey is still more.
Yep.
I think Mickey is still bigger.
Oh, Mickey for sure.
But Mario would be in like a top 5. I think if Mickey is say number 1. Well, I
think the strongest character would have to go to Link then.
Link, okay. I like Samus, but I don't know if she. I think Link is probably a better choice.
Link is and I hate to say, because I was thinking as you were talking, I was thinking like, well, who would it be deep like character wise,
Yeah,
like
I
would be
mean,
stronger than Link?
it's not Nintendo's thing.
It's not.
That's okay. That's okay. I think their characters have been built more from the game itself, which is arguably the
Hmm.
better. Like I almost think that's because of the medium that it is. It's a game. You are playing it. It didn't matter to them, I think, who it is that you're playing as, what you're even necessarily do. Well, not what you're doing. What you're doing, I think, was important in terms of how the game worked, but maybe like the story and plot and stuff. Um, More like basic. But you could say that with any, like Castlevania. It was more, or Metroid.
Yeah.
It's not about necessarily the character, at least in the beginning. It was more about whether it's going backward, the Metroidvania mechanics. Like it was about that, not who you're playing as. Yeah, Nintendo's I mean, you could think of like the biggest characters. Does Mickey, like we just threw him out there. We skipped over that legend. Is Mickey one of our favorite? I think he is. I think but I'll say this. I actually like Donald more. I've just always liked the voice, and I guess I like a duck more than a mouse. Like I like Donald's look, even historically. Like later on, I guess now, but you can like Kingdom Hearts, but even like the early, like go back 50, 60, 70 years, like the early Donald look all the way up. I've always liked how he looks and sounds. I think Mickey's maybe a better character because Donald is just talk about a character that's one dimensional. Donald is always, mad. What about that? Out of that group, out of Mickey Mouse's clubhouse thing, what would you go with?
I'm gonna say Mickey. No questions asked. My early experience, and this is like how I know for a fact. As a kid, growing up, like you wake up for school.
Yeah.
Like two things that I would watch in the morning. That would be on was either Pinky and the Brain, um, Recess, and they had a couple of cartoons with Mickey Mouse that would have been there as well. And when Kingdom Hearts came out, Mickey Mouse was always like in the group.
Yeah.
If I could, like, if he was possible to have there, he was there.
Yeah.
I love Goofy. Um,
Goofy, I
but
think, is actually the
Mickey bar
most.
none.
I think Goofy's the
Popular,
most
probably.
well-rounded because
Yeah.
he cares about he fails a lot, but then he also like makes things up to people. Like Goofy may be the
He
most
has a son.
well-rounded, but he's also so dumb at times.
Yes. My thing is this: why is Goofy treated like a human, but Pluto treated like a dog?
Oh no, we just broke it. I'm sure there's an answer. So I'm sure somebody's asked that before, and there's got to be an answer to that, right?
It's definitely been asked. I've never seen an answer to it from them, at least, but it is a very good
That's
question.
a great question. Just one was born with the ability to talk, right?
Yeah,
Because Pluto
that's got to
can't.
be it.
Pluto can't talk, right? Yeah,
No,
it's got.
but Goofy
Well,
can't understand him either.
who can?
Goofy, can he understand him?
Can Goofy understand Pluto?
Yeah,
I think only Mickey can, right? Like generally, well, I don't think any of them
yeah,
really. I think Pluto is very like he'll lick and then he'll point, like he'll
yeah.
literally direct them where they need to look or go. Like he doesn't. I think he's just a very good communicator. Already,
What about the opposite side, Looney Tunes?
Looney Tunes.
Bugs
I think
Bunny,
it's Bugs is probably got to be my favorite. Yeah.
Daffy Duck. With the that's
Yep.
his name, right? Daffy. Yep.
Yeah. Daffy Duck. Yeah.
Elmer Fudd,
Yeah.
Tasmanian Devil, all.
That was always lesser to me. I never watched like Bugs Bunny. I've seen so many different, or like Looney Tunes Back in Action is one of my favorite. The kind of crossover like movie things. I love that movie like to death. So yeah, I think Bugs and Daffy would be two, but it's very like one dimensional. Like if you go into like deep cuts of like those
Yeah.
characters, I wouldn't I wouldn't be able to keep up.
No, they don't have that much character development. It was always more like a wacky, like a wacky episode of them
Yeah.
either chasing each other, or it was very few character development moments.
Yeah.
But it was it was enjoyable.
Yeah. You have to
I
kind of
do love Space
default to,
Jam.
like I could go like the Teen Titans, like that show, and
Ooh,
any of them, you know.
the original
Yeah,
Teen
the
Titans
original. Yeah.
show. Oh, I one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
Favorite themes. It was perfect.
Yeah.
It was perfect. That was
What?
the debut of Red X actually.
Oh, really?
Yes, he actually was not in a comic book until either last year or the year before. He did
Oh,
not make his first comic book appearance until last year or the year before.
there you go.
So, um, yeah, he was a debut character there.
Optimus, if I want to go Transformers. Um,
Definitely.
but I don't know how high. Like I think he's actually a pretty well. I mean, if you like really go deep into Optimus and all the different mediums, I think he's actually a really solid character. He's just not a character that I've really needed to do that, I guess. With I haven't cared like as much, but I think he's got like the stuff there if you wanted to like super care about him and you wanted to know
Oh, for
about that
sure.
character. I think that's there. Um,
My favorite turtle is Donatello, but I think Raphael probably has the best character.
I've never been really into like I've played games all through my life of TMNT. I've watched movies and shows, but very just like glossing over. Like I've never, for whatever
Got
reason,
you.
I like the concept. I like some of the villain, like Shredder. Like oh my god, like it's really good. And there's some great iteration, and like that new game that was announced a few weeks back. But I've just never really been into it. I don't know why. You can only be
It's
into, I guess, so much. I mean, talk about all these
yeah.
movies, all these shows. SpongeBob. Can I throw in SpongeBob?
If we're talking characters of all time, he's in my top five.
Sponge characters of all
he's
time. Yeah, I mean, oh man,
he,
he's very. I think he's important. He's got to be important.
he's too vital to my entire life, even current day.
I think everybody.
I call SpongeBob like if not every day, every other day. There's some quote that I use.
Yeah, it can, SpongeBob. What's weird about SpongeBob is probably like like I don't know. I have so many the things growing up, but like there would be I don't even know where it was. There's a picture of me when I was like 4 or 5 with like a person. Did you ever see a SpongeBob like somebody dressed up as him with the huge suit on? Have you ever done that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I did that and I got a picture with him and like even that like look is so cool. Like he actually kind of does work in live action like somebody dressed up as him. I would do that, watch the show. I remember like my dad would make me sit and eat. So if I didn't finish dinner, like I would sit there until it was done, which I respect. And SpongeBob would be on. It'd be on like 5:30 or 6 o'clock. So I would get pretty upset because I'd like miss SpongeBob. There'd be times like where my tooth was loose and I would like run, but and SpongeBob be in like the background. It's just like all these peripheral kind of memories I had with SpongeBob. All the games, or at least so many of the games. The movie, I don't even know what is the Goofy Goober. What is that movie called?
I think it's SpongeBob the movie.
Just SpongeBob the movie. I mean, it was the very first one, right? So it's probably very generic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it went away. So I want to try to wrap it up. I'll go through my SpongeBob history. It went away for a long time, but with my daughter, like she's so into it, and like you said, like with the quoting, I don't know if I would quote it if it wasn't for her, like if it wasn't coming back into my life like 4, 5, 6 years ago. So like SpongeBob, I'd say went away for a long time. I don't know if I would have. I think maybe I would have played like Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated and Cosmic Shake. I think I would have still played them no matter what, but it's just like entered kind of like a second era for me now as an adult. Because now she has her episodes, I have mine. We both quote it to each other. If I say something like at night, then you have to say that any of the things they say, like washing the floors at night. You have to just do. You have to do it, and it's just so organic. So yeah, SpongeBob I think just very powerful show. The sad thing is, its great era was really only in the beginning, and it wasn't that long considering how many. There's like 15 seasons. Only the first
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 are elite. Now they are some of the greatest things ever, including now as a 26-year-old. But they got real bad, and it's been bad for like a long time.
I'm scared to watch the newer ones.
They're bad. They're bad.
I am in 100% agreement that they thought that they're like the original first couple of seasons are iconic because for me it's probably the only medium like that I can think of where you have a completely different experience watching specifically those seasons
Yeah.
as a child versus an adult, and you realize that like, oh, there's stuff for adults here too,
Yeah.
and it's like it's totally night and day. I
Yeah.
think that they all like when they were in their prime, they were in their
Oh yeah. I
prime.
mean,
I
yeah. Like those
I will
writer.
make an honorable mention
Go ahead.
to
Go ahead.
Rugrats though.
Rugrats. Yeah.
I do like the new Rugrats too.
Okay. I never watched. I haven't watched it.
I do like the new Rugrats as well. I'm a little
Rugrats.
behind, but
Yeah.
Rugrats was always my jam.
Love it. All right. Well, I'm sure we could probably go for hours, and honestly, a part two I think is definitely warranted at this point. We could probably do live streams
Yes.
literally forever on it. So we'll wrap it up there. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it. Next week, like I said, it will be our last pre-recorded video, and then we'll go back to doing more of the live, or at least if we still do pre-recorded stuff, it'll be like we record it that week, and you also see it that week, not 2 months ahead of time. But it's just the way that is. So, Sway, anything you want to say at the end here?
Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for the support. Love you guys very much. See you on the next one.
And we made it. We guaranteed that we made it to 31. So, like, at least we did that. So that's cool. And we'll just go from there. Thank you all so much for being here. We'll see you all for next week's episode.